This pine needle basket might look like it was woven, but it was actually crocheted using a mix of single crochet and waistcoat stitches. This basket might be a little less stiff and sturdy than a traditionally woven pine needle basket, but the basket can be strengthened with a beeswax coating if you choose to do so. This basket is also probably sturdier than most of your other types of crochet baskets. I think this method is also faster than your traditionally woven baskets and maybe a little less tedious, but kind of like how crocheting generally requires more yarn than knitting, crocheting your basket will also require more yarn or thread than a woven basket. I also couldn't find this technique anywhere else, so while your woven baskets probably have a wide array of different types of stitch tutorials, this might be the only pine needle basket tutorial on the internet. For now, I'm sure we can all keep innovating and probably create cool stitches, figure out what crochet stitches will work well, what other crochet stitches can work well for baskets, and start making unique things. The other thing with the crochet is, if you notice this mushroom handle, is that there's pretty much endless possibilities. You can get very creative with the handle, I think. I think a little cactus would be really cute. I might do that next. If you are a basket weaver, I would love to hear any feedback in the comments. And if you're a crocheter looking to start crocheting a pine needle basket, let's get started. When you're searching for needles, and say you're only finding needles that are about 4.5 inches long, now, I would recommend, if you're on a trail, walking and checking other patches, because you might suddenly find a patch with needles that are like 9.5 inches long, which is exactly what happened to me when I was searching for needles. Most of my longer ones came from a different patch from the short ones. We're gonna wash these in the bathtub with some dish soap, and then some hot water. Okay, the pine needles have been soaking for a few minutes, and you can see there's like a lot of dirt and debris at the bottom. We're gonna drain that out and start rinsing them with like lukewarm water. After washing your needles, the general advice is to soak them overnight to soften them, but these were actually soaked overnight in melting snow when I got them, so they're already very flexible. Our next preparation thing is to scrape off this tip or to snip it off. I'm going with snipping just because I'm finding that a lot easier. You can also do it in a few at a time with small bundles and snip them all at once to move a little faster. I like to keep my needles soft and pliable by keeping them wrapped in a damp towel and just taking out like a smallish handful, like about this much, to work with at a time. You'll also want some kind of tube to use as a gauge. This is a cookout straw cut to about 2 inches long. I've got my pine needles, my straw, mercerized cotton crochet thread, and a 1.5 millimeter needle hook. Now, there was a small gap in the center of my basket. We're gonna try to get this one tighter, but because of that, we want to leave a long tail in case we want to weave back and forth to kind of close this little hole here. So I'll start by making a slip knot, and this is how long I'm leaving the tail. And now we gotta load up our straw with pine needles. I find this to be the most tedious part of the whole process, and I'm not very fast at it and kind of awkward. But you want your straw to be like filled snugly with pine needles. Okay, I've got my slipknot on the hook and my yarn here, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull the yarn through the slipknot. So we kind of just did like a chain around the pine needles, and now we're going to start single crocheting around the pine needles by going under them, pulling the yarn around, and then going through those 2 loops. And we're going to do that again. Making a single crochet around the pine needles. and we're going to keep going until it gets long enough to bend. Okay, so I've made about 10 single crochets, and now we're going to start bending it into a circle. So you want these loose ones underneath what's going to be our new ones. We'll eventually cut those. And then I'm gonna just go ahead and insert my hook into like this first like chain stitch we made just to get it started. And then I'm gonna do another single crochet. Okay, next we're gonna insert our hook into the first single crochet we made. And then we're gonna single crochet around the pine needles again. Okay, now we're gonna do something called the waistcoat stitch. And this means that we will insert our hook into, instead of like these top loops, we're going to go between here, and then on the back side it will also look like 2 loops on the back side. And we're going to make a single crochet. And then the next one will be a single crochet into the loop, like a normal one, not a waistcoat. And then complete that. Tighten it a little and keep working those. I promise you this first one is like the hardest part ever, and then it gets pretty easy. So do your waistcoat stitch. And basically the main stitch of this is the waistcoat stitch, and the other regular single crochets, we're just using those to add extra stitches. I'm going to continue like this until it gets easier to do and easier to fill. Okay, so we were actually able to get a closed hole with this one by only making 10 single crochets before we start trying to wrap around. Compared to this one where I blundered and there was a hole in the middle. And now I can actually show you the stitches. Maybe. I have to stop this little guy from eating the pine needles because apparently they're not good for little kitties. So at this point I have about 20 single crochets going around, and I won't be adding any more, and I'll just be doing waistcoat stitch. But when I did want to add more, I was working normal single crochet stitch through the top 2 loops, and now we're just going to be doing waistcoat stitch. So our next stitch is this one here, and those are the top 2 loops, and then here's like that V shape, and you will go through the V shape on this side, and then look at your work on the back and make sure you're going through the V on the back as well. So you can see I'm through it at the back and on the front. And then I'll pull my yarn through it, wrap around the top, and pull through the 2 loops, and there's the waistcoat stitch. Here's the next stitch, here's the V. I'm going to go through it, check the back. I'm not through it on the back, but I will. There I am through it on the back. Go back to the front, pull it through, wrap your yarn around, and pull it through the 2 loops. And there's your waistcoat stitch again. Let's just film it one more time. Through the V, look on your back, go through the V on the back, pull your yarn through, wrap the yarn around your hook, and go through the 2 loops. you can tighten it up a little. I'm gonna keep going until I need to refill this, and then I'll show that. When I get to like this point, I like to go ahead and start refilling my straw with pine needles. And a good tip, it is kind of tedious, but to try to insert them in the middle so that you have less loose ones hanging out that you have to cut off later. I honestly think this is like very tedious, but the longer the pine needles you can find, the longer you can go in between refilling the straw. If any basket weavers have advice on this, please give it to me. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing one at a time. I think it's because I'm filming myself. Usually I try to do like 2 to 4 stuffed in at a time, and then like I scoot the straw up a little and fill it in more. Like, you do want it relatively snug. And another thing is, it can be tempted to keep scooting your straw up so that you can go longer, but if you scoot your straw too far up, things will start to fall apart on you, so I don't recommend doing that. I recommend keeping your straw close to where you're working and just slowly scooting it up as you go, and then refilling more often. But yes, you'll keep going like this until it's as big as you want, and if you get very big where your stitches are getting far apart, please feel free to add more stitches by doing some normal single crochets instead of the waistcoat. Okay, my basket base is about as big as I want it to be because I'm just making a really tiny one for these stitch markers today. So we're about ready to start doing the walls, but before we do that, I would highly suggest to go ahead and take a darning needle and weave in this loose thread, and then we're going to snip these off. I'm going to go ahead and snip these to get them out of my way. And I do put them in here because I like to return these to nature. Okay, now I'm going to start weaving in the loose thread. And you can really just weave it in however you want. You can like weave it into the pine needles if you want to. I'm really happy that we got a closed base on this one. So we really didn't have to leave the really long tail that we did. But honestly, for your first basket, if you start getting frustrated at the beginning, just like accept the hole and then, you know, use your long loose thread to cover the hole. Then I'm gonna go kind of between them and through these. I just want this to be secure before I cut them. So I'll go through here, maybe. Go back through the middle, and then I'm gonna do that through some other ones again. I'm almost satisfied with how secure this is. Okay, I will go ahead and cut these now. Cut them a little more. I'm gonna maybe just like go over that with the loose thread now. This probably is not necessary to be this thorough, especially if you're gonna beeswax them, which I hope to do with mine. Okay, I'm just gonna go through a lot of the same. Just go through all of those, and then I'll cut it. Okay. I am pretty satisfied with this security. And here's how the basket looks on both sides now that we've cleaned it up a little bit. This is going to be the outside, but you could kind of like reverse what I do if you wanted this to be the outside, which I think would also look pretty cool. So you honestly kind of keep doing what you were doing. So let's start doing that. You know, you're like making your waistcoat stitch, right? But now we're gonna just put this here before we tighten it. And we're going to keep doing that. So let me do that again. Okay, here's another waistcoat stitch. Just put this here and then tighten it. It'll take a few stitches before it starts kind of making its way fully to the top. But just keep pressing this inward and tightening your stitches. And you can see it's starting to form a wall. So let's show that again. Act like you're doing your normal thing. Kind of bend this inward and tighten that. We're going to keep going around for the first start of our wall, but please note that on this little guy, the way this wall curves inward was really not intentional. It was just me starting to crochet too tightly, which made it shrink inward. Okay, we've pretty much done like the first row of a wall, kind of. And so keep going like that, and if you don't want it to curve in, just like try laying it directly on top of this one as you're growing your wall upward. Here I'm pausing to refill the pine needles again. that's about as far as I go. Let's continue crocheting. So I've continued building up the wall, as you can see, and I'll continue doing that. And let me show you the lid for the mushroom. I kind of did a funny lid because I just made this flat, and then I started curving out again, and then curved back up so it would like just sit in there. I'm gonna make like a regular lid for this guy, so it'll be like the same process as the basket, except you'll make this a little bit bigger and then go down just like 1 or 2 rows, and then so that the lid fits good on there. I would love to see your baskets if you make them. My crochet Instagram is linked below. If you would like to like tag me or just like show me a picture of the baskets you make, like this seriously gives me all the dopamine, serotonin, like I just feel like the happiness these like cute little baskets brings is insane, and I hope y'all have a lot of fun making them. Thank you for watching, bye!